Welcome back. I want to apologize for the slight delay. We wanted to make sure that everybody was able and had access to view us tonight. So we're trying to get that YouTube link up. We should have no more problems moving forward. And we're ready to get into this interview. Again, this is a special exclusive interview with the Honorable Myron Walwyn, the leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition and member for the 6th District. Honorable Walwyn, welcome to the set of Cut Deep. Welcome to my new studio.
Thank you very much, Cindy. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I want to congratulate you, first of all. I know you've been working on this for a while. It looks lovely. It's very good that you were able to accomplish this.
Yeah, thank you. And
kudos to you.
Thank you. And I do also want to thank you for also supporting me in getting this studio here. There were days I would go and I would just sit just to vent.
Yes.
And he listened every single time. But Honorable Walwyn, it's great to have you here in the studio this evening. And I do want to forewarn you.
Okay.
You've been on the Cut Deep set before, but I was very mild with you that time. We're not holding anything back tonight. Okay. We're not here for the political jargon, and the political answers. The people have a lot of questions. Okay. They've sent me here for answers, and I plan to get those answers here tonight. So without further ado, we're going to get into it.
Sure.
Honorable Walwyn, although most viewers may know you, we have such a wide, diverse listenership across the world. Yes. Please introduce yourself for the listening audience.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Myron Walwyn. I'm the representative for the 6th Electoral District and the leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition. I entered the political arena in 2011. I served 2 terms as the Minister for Education and Culture. I was not re-elected in 2019, but I was able to return back in 2023. And I want to say a special thank you again, whenever I get the chance, to the people of District 6 for placing their confidence in me to represent their interest in the House of Assembly. I love these Virgin Islands deeply, and I will always put the people first and do my utmost to make sure that life is better for the people of these Virgin Islands.
Thank you. So how did you get into politics? Like, what was your journey? How did you end up here?
Can I tell you?
I didn't know. I did know, but your strength within the VIP and then switching from VIP to NDP. I have my own story, but tell me your story.
No, well, we have to first say this. Everybody was Virgin Islands Party supporter.
Was what?
A Virgin Islands Party supporter. Most of the modern, no, I meant the Labadee and the Ralph and that kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
And parties splintered off of that.
They did. Yeah.
But when I made the decision to enter active politics, I made the decision to do so with the National Democratic Party.
You mean to run?
To run,
but
yes, to run actively.
Yeah.
Actively. Right. And I never ran with any other political party besides the National Democratic Party. And my interest has been there before, but it got an extra push when I was the chairman of the tourist board. I thought that we weren't doing as much as we could to position the territory tourism-wise. And so I'm one of those people who won't just complain. I get off the sidelines and I try to make a difference. And so those persons who are listening to me now, who are complaining, a particular season is coming up soon, and rather than complain, get off the sideline. Those of you who have an interest in the country, those who have been blessed to be educated by the territory, been able to operate businesses and develop leadership skills that could tend to the development of the country. I know some people will say, well, we can do it from outside, but you can also be more effective on the inside as well. The country needs help, and I want to take this opportunity to encourage persons as well to come forward and do what they can to assist the country.
I almost feel like he's talking to me.
I'm talking to a lot of persons out there, and so many the names are coming through my mind as I spoke, and those persons know who they are.
All right, so we're getting into it real fast. I'm gonna get into this really fast.
Sure.
So you were once the highest, and I believe that record has not been broken to date. You can correct me.
I could never forget the number, 5,777.
We don't get those numbers these days.
Yes.
All right. So there you go. And that number has not been broken to date. So you were the highest at large vote getter.
Yes.
That changed in around 2019.
It did.
Where you didn't even make it back into office.
Yes.
That year, the party you were affiliated with, the National Democratic Party, it split right before the elections that year. And
Yes.
a lot happened. There was, hopovers from, your sitting government by Honorable Rani, I believe, Honorable Mitch, and
Archibald Christian.
Honorable Christian. They hopped over to the opposition. Like all of that happened. It was quite an eventful year. What really happened that fateful year? And I want the unedited version. I want the facts as you know them to be. And I'm saying this because the street and certain insiders have their stories. You sit down around a lot of tables, you sit down on the block, you hear a lot. And some of what I've heard is that the split happened before we even realized it happened, and it happened kind of around, when the head of the port at that time, Claude Skelton, his contract was up for renewal. So I'm hearing things around that the split actually happened then. And, I don't want you to bring out the cabinet business, but I also want you to be as frank and clear with the people as possible, because we don't get that. Okay. And then you make decisions, off of things that you had no idea.
Yeah.
So we want some truth tonight. We want as much as you can tell us.
Yes.
And I also understand the then governor, I think that was Duncan. He had some demands and some threats around the same issue. So if you could enlighten us.
Well,
putting him on the hot spot. I know he might put you on the hot spot tonight.
You are indeed. Cindy, I've spoken about this matter a couple of times. I must admit I have not gone in depth in it because I prefer to use my energies towards moving the country forward and discussing things that I know can certainly help to improve the quality of life of people. But we are certainly living in a different era now.
We are, very much
where disinformation, misinformation travels even before the truth get to put on their shoes. And I must say that I have been the recipient of some of that. There's some of the things that I hear people say, even surrounding the same breakup of the National Democratic Party. And I wonder, where would they ever get such information from that's so ridiculous? So I'm going to try the best I can. And you don't have to tell me the truth. I will always tell you the truth about anything you ask me about. Now, back in 2018, I think it was, a decision was made to hold a convention for the National Democratic Party. I didn't like the way that it was arrived at, but nonetheless, that is water under the bridge. I think it was a Thursday evening when that decision was made that wanted to have fresh elections for leadership of the party in about a month and a half from the date when it was announced, I think, probably 2 months. It was done in a manner that was not the best way. And I must say, I said it before, I don't like the way in which Dr. Smith was handled in relation to this whole matter, but nonetheless, be that as it may. After the discussion was had about holding fresh elections, I called Dr. Smith the following morning. We went for coffee to just discuss what happened the night prior. And he said to me he was not going to run because he didn't like how things were done. And then he asked me about my interest, and I said to him, I think I may have an interest. Obviously, it's subject to him not knowing.
If you mind speaking a little louder.
And I got his blessing that evening when we spoke. Now, there were some ministers of government that I got along very well with. Dr. Smith was one, but our relationship grew most through work. Mark was very close to me because our relationship preceded politics. Honorable Skelton's relationship with me, for instance, grew during work. And Dr. Pickering was also part of the cabinet Our relationship never really got off the ground, but there was no particular reason why it didn't.
Dr. Pickering?
Yeah, it never got off the ground for any particular. There was no
Okay.
particular reason that it didn't happen. So I spoke to Mark, of course, got Mark's blessing as well. And Honorable Skelton and I had a very good working relationship. We actually worked extremely well together for the majority of the time that I was a minister, and he was a minister as well. And I called him. I think when I called him, he was on his way traveling. And I asked him if he had any intentions of running. He said to me, no, he didn't say that. He said to me, he hasn't thought about it yet.
Okay.
But he was traveling, and when he comes back, he will make a decision.
Okay.
He then asked me if I had an interest in running. I said I was thinking about it, but I want to hear what you were going to say. And he actually said to me, you should go ahead and do it. So I got the endorsement, as the support or the encouragement as well from Honorable Skelton to run. He did say to me when he was traveling that he will know what he's doing when he returns from his travel.
Okay.
And I took him at his word. But then about 2 days after that, I saw an ad came out with his face saying that he's running for the leadership of the party. And I found that very interesting. I didn't start to do any campaigning yet or anything of the sort. And then I said to myself, well, if I'm interested, and I've spoken to, for instance, Honorable Skelton, I know Honorable Vanterpool was not interested in running, and I didn't hear anything about Honorable
Pickering.
Honorable Pickering.
Okay.
I started to campaign as well. Okay. For the leadership. I tried 3 times after Honorable Skelton came back to meet with him to discuss the way forward, because I was, in my thinking, I'm saying to myself, and this is how I'm thinking. If we were to go to the convention and say that we have agreed among ourselves that this is the position, whether he's number 1, I'm number 2, I'm number 1, he's number 2, whatever it is, I certainly believe that the temperature, having regards to the temperature of the room, they would have accepted it. Honorable Skelton stood me up 3 times, never showed up. And so I said, okay, looks like we have to have a competition. And so I went out doing my campaigning. We had the list of people. I came out and I did what I needed to do. I'm sure he was doing his thing as well.
Did he ever say why he was unable to meet you those 3 times?
He didn't say.
Just didn't show up. It didn't say anything. Never addressed it.
He didn't say anything.
Okay.
I'm getting the story because you say you want the story.
Okay.
And then the election took place. I won the election. I again invited him to meet with me, and he did come this time.
Okay.
And I basically tried to, have respect for him because he's an elder of the party, a founding member of the party. I wanted to know what his interest was, what he wanted to do, what role he wanted to play in the government, whether he would run again. I actually even said to him, you want to be the finance minister, which I would have done.
Okay.
If he wanted to be that, right? He said to me that he doesn't think he's going to run again, but I should go ahead and organize the party. And if I need somebody to run at large, he will consider it. So I'm there waiting for him. Just like I was waiting for Dr. Pickering as well, because I approached Dr. Pickering as well and said, Dr. Pickering, tell me what you want to do, because they're the elders of the party, I have to show respect, which I did. While I'm there waiting for them, if you notice, we were very late. In 2019, the NDP campaign started very late. It started late because I was waiting on these elders to tell me what it is they wanted to do. And while I was there waiting, for instance, on Honorable Skelton, he was forming PVIM while I was there waiting for him to tell me whether he wants to run or not, because I reached out. And I also reached out to Dr. Pickering as well, sent messages, spoke with them, no response at all. And so we went to the elections and we lost. Now, I hear people saying that Myron broke up the National Democratic Party. I don't understand how that accords with common sense, because we had an election, we had a process based on the Constitution, and I won. And other persons took up and left the party because I won. And I don't understand how it could be said that I broke up the party. Right. If you don't want to have an election, don't have one. If you want a coronation, have a coronation. Right. But if it's a contest, properly done, fairly done, based on your constitution, anybody anybody who's a part of the organization, whether you are a minister or not, whether you were elected or not, based on the constitution of the party. And that is the case for any political party that I know about in the Caribbean. Anybody can put their names forward to run, and whoever wins. And we should have the discipline to fall behind whoever wins and move the agenda of the country through the party vehicle forward.
That's correct. So there's some stuff in there that I didn't know before. Okay. So where did the communication fall off? Because, I mean, we're adults.
Yes.
So where did the communication fall off? Have you ever been able, or were you ever able to speak to both of these members of the party to understand exactly, well, why there was a split?
I did speak to Honorable Skelton after we both lost, closer to 2023. We had a conversation. I don't want to divulge
sure.
that conversation that we had, but certainly he expressed to me that I was not his issue, or I was not his problem. So I'm not sure. I mean, again, I don't want to divulge what it is. I can only share that much with you. But what I've said to you is actually what took place during that period.
So you were not the issue. Okay.
I can't see how I could be.
Okay.
We had an election. It was a free and fair election. And if it had gone the other way, if Honorable Skelton had won, I'd have fallen in line. I'd have been right there, holding his hand, pushing forward to get the party reelected. Because at the end of the day, it's about discipline, in my view. If you want to serve the people, and the vehicle that we use to serve the people is through a political party, and it has a process, we have to all be respectful about the process.
Okay. Do you think that, so some of the conversation out there is around, and I don't want to be gossipy, I just want to go straight to, what's out there and try to get some clarity on this matter, because the truth is everybody wants to know, because nobody can understand fully like why there is a split. Everybody, I think, there are those who would love to make you the scapegoat, but you said that something happened. You didn't like how Dr. Smith was handled, and without having to tell us, what all of that was, can you give us an idea? When you say you didn't like how he was handled, there are those who feel that you were chosen by the Smiths to take the helm of the party forward. Like, these are things that are out there. If you can put some clarity.
That is not true. That is not true at all. And I don't think Dr. Smith got very involved in the process at all of who his successor was. I know there was some growing discontent with Dr. Smith's leadership at certain points. And certain members were saying certain things. And I was one of those people who went to some of the elders of the party and said, if you have concerns in terms of transitioning, speak to Dr. Smith and let him go out on his own terms. And again, without saying too much, I just didn't like the way that process was done.
Okay.
Dr. Smith was in the room at the same time when we learned about this new this call for the convention and so on.
Okay.
And I believe that the calling of the convention should come from the person who's the chairman. He should have been more involved in it. Like that. When I said I didn't like the process, that's what I meant. But nonetheless, it's water under the bridge. And we are where we are now.
Okay. I talked about initially when I asked you that question about there being a follow before there was a follow. Is that something?
You had a long question. What was the last part of the question?
So part of the question was that there was a follow before the follow that everybody actually saw. Which I think involved the renewal of Claude Skelton's contract.
Yes.
And the governor of the time having some demands on the leadership or the sitting government, the cabinet. Now, I know that you're not to divulge what has happened in cabinet, but there are things that have come up. People have said things.
I can't divulge.
Do you feel there was an initial fallout with the renewal of that contract with you and your colleagues?
I think there was a fracture.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say that there was a fracture a fracture there, because Mr. Skelton Klein's contract needed to come to cabinet for approval, and you know, cabinet discussion should be private, but people will always respect it. I didn't support his renewal, and he knew that.
Was there a reason you didn't?
I don't want to divulge it, but I'm the kind of person who deliberate before I make decisions. I don't make rash decisions. I don't make emotional decisions. And if I make a decision, it means that I've covered the basis and I'm satisfied in my mind that I can or cannot support something.
Right.
I didn't support it. Our relationship has not been the same since then. But
the relationship with whom?
With Mr. Skelton Klein has not been the same since then. But that's the nature of things. If you have to make decisions and in the interest of the country or stand alone on your decisions, I'm one who's never afraid of doing that. But again, I guess that's water under the bridge, and it is what it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Did the governor have any play on why how you voted?
No.
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 Okay.
No.
All right. So that election cycle.
Yes.
Right, 2019. I'm gonna say was the birth of you, the island man, the outsider, someone that should never lead this territory. And yet here we are again in 2025. I mean, it stirred up last year when you decided to, you know, kind of try to unite the opposition and then your move for leadership. The Honorable Skelton even made a snide remark, which I found disrespectful, and I had my public view on it in reference to, you know, us being beside you in Antigua had we stayed under Antigua and not sought further self-determination. As such a beloved Virgin Islander, because I think you're a beloved Virgin Islander, or I always felt that way. You know, the tall, shiny-haired guy, you know, walks around, he gives everybody a kiss, a hug, whatever. That's what I saw.
Yes.
Until 2019, you know, there was the fallout, and here this thing has surfaced again. So as a beloved Virgin Islander, high vote getter, how did it come to that, to your knowledge?
Well, I can't say how anything came about. What I would say certainly is that I love these Virgin Islands with all my heart. When I moved back home in 1995, and I've said this story so many times before in the House of Assembly because it is true. Having lived in a number of other places, including places in the Caribbean, I've grown to have this deep appreciation. You see that when we talk about the culture of the Virgin Islands, people automatically think about pea soup and fish and mayonnaise sauce and those other things. But I speak of the values. When I speak of the value, I think one of them is ownership of your country and ownership of the land and ownership of businesses, which is something that we take very, very much for granted. It is not lost on me at all that the BVI is unique in this particular way. And whatever I can do, whether in government or out of government, to make sure that that is maintained, I am going to do it because I understand the importance of that to ancestral Virgin Islanders having a say or maintaining that say in the development of the Virgin Islands. I hear the things about my parents are not from here. I told my parents to be born in the BVI. They didn't listen to me. And they did the second best thing, have me here.
Okay.
And I thank them very much for that because I couldn't think of anywhere else to be born except the Virgin Islands. People come up with these remarks. When you look at sometimes where they come from people who have their own agenda. They're social constructs, just like how slavery was and colorism is, where people try to keep you in a box and they try to divide and segment the country for their own benefit. And it's not a good thing. The strength of the Virgin Islands lies in its diversity. You have people who have deep ancestral ties. You have people like myself who both parents came in. My parents moved here in 1963. And they came and they contributed and they had me here as well. So you have persons like myself who both parents are not from here. You have persons who have one parent born here, one parent not born here. You have persons who become belongers through our immigration process and so on. And so we have to move past this outsiders type thing. And I like to use an analogy that I think is a very good one. And this Antiguan thing came up because my mother was Antiguan and she believed in the education system of Antigua.
Okay.
And from the time I was small,
both your parents were Antiguan?
No, my father's from Nevis.
Okay.
Oh yes, my father's Nevis.
Okay.
Father's from Nevis. My mother from Antigua. But they moved here together in 1963. And my mother believed in the grammar school system, both in Antigua and in St. Kitts. And from early through the house, she keeps saying, I'm going to send you to Antigua, to grammar school. So that's why I went to Antigua. I didn't go to her grammar school that she wanted me to go to. I went to a school that I thought was more fun. I now understand what she saw while she wanted me to go to grammar school.
Okay.
But she sent me to live with my aunt. And my aunt had 13 children. So this big enough house. So about 9 of them were living with her, 4 were grown. But it was about 10 of us in the house as children. And when you came by my aunt's house, you couldn't tell that I wasn't one of her children. Because she was able to make her children feel special without making me feel that I was not her own. And I use that analogy because the person who wants to lead the Virgin Islands must understand that. You must make ancestral Virgin Islanders feel special as they are. But to make them feel special doesn't mean you have to make people like myself, who parents are not from here, feel as if we do not belong. And I started out by speaking about the culture of the Virgin Islands in terms of our ownership, because that's an integral. Most Caribbean countries, people there look for jobs. People in BVI look for ownership.
Right.
And so the way to protect ancestral Virgin Islanders is not through all this silly-nilly talking that we continue to do to create division. The way to do it is through your economic policies. Because BVI Islanders would never be able to procreate. When I say procreate, I mean have children at the rate that immigration and other people becoming belongers. It just wouldn't happen. But he who controls the economy controls the country in the direction of the country.
Right.
So when you hear me in the House of Assembly speaking about small businesses suffering and having a difficult time, it is with that understanding that if you do not do things the right way, if you don't have the right economic policies, make the right laws, your people, ancestral Virgin Islanders, will lose their grip, because part of the grip is through their ownership. And so the person who wants to lead the country must be able to understand that, but also understand that the strength of the Virgin Islands lies in its diversity. It's a delicate balancing act, but you have to do it. And so to try to make other people feel out of the way, when that happened to me in the House of Assembly, when Albert Skelton made the statement, I got up and I did it for a sobering moment, not for me, but for him. Because if you're going to be operating at that level of leadership, you can't have that level of thinking in your head. That statement was designed to make me feel like I don't belong. That's what that was designed to do. It didn't work. I tried to get him to understand that at this level, that should never be the thinking of somebody who wants to aspire or is at that level. All of us as leaders of the country, particularly from the House of Assembly, we should not just say it, but our actions should dictate it. We should be able to make ancestral Virgin Islanders feel special as they should, do all the things to make sure that the right economic policies, without making other people who are born here like myself, or other persons that we have given our citizenship to. Because you can't tell, you can't give somebody something and then turn around and cuss them every day and make them feel less. What do you give to them for? If you don't want to give it, don't give it. But if you give it, for us to have a society that works and where we can we can make that diversity a plus for us, which it is, we have to understand that it's a symbiotic relationship that we must make sure that we keep going.
Yeah. On my way here, I shared a video. It's a 2-minute video that someone shared with me that I shared with my political audience. I like to call it, about 250 people listen out. These types of information too. But it was with the Honorable Mayor Motley.
Yes.
And she was actually addressing plans that they have to, for their ancestral Bajans and those that have come to live amongst them, those that have been given status, etc. And the last thing she said was that it doesn't matter how you acquire becoming a Bajan, there will be no difference recognized in terms of being a Bajan, right? You're a Bajan, you become a Bajan, you're a welcome Bajan, you're a Bajan. So, that jumped back into my head based on what you said just now about making everybody feel like, if we've given you status, then
but also in all of that too, you have to recognize that there is a fear factor that ancestral Virgin Islanders have.
Yeah,
and you can't blame those persons for having that, because you are seeing yourself.
And I'm glad you brought that up.
In a small in a small country where you're being outnumbered in your own home.
Yeah.
And it's a feeling of anxiety, but I'm saying there is a way to remedy that. And so the effort should be placed on remedying that rather than trying to create the rifts that we're creating. And the funny thing is, some of the same people who are the ones responsible for creating all this confusion want to be at the forefront leading matches and different things when you have spent a significant amount of time making people feel like they don't belong, and then you want to hold a match and then you expect people to come. Nobody coming behind you. It's not going to happen.
But I mean, you bring up the fear factor conversation. Yeah. And that's one of the things I think people feel with you. And so the conversation is there as...
In what way?
It's there as, he's going to not look out for Virgin Islanders. He's not a Virgin Islander, so we're not his interest. He's gonna give away the BVI. Let me just say things that come in to the other. I'll say island people because we love to use that term. My dad has been called it, so I'm gonna use it freely. It's a word that we love to use. And that's the conversation.
I'm going to answer your question by asking you a question. I want you to. So let me be the interviewer for a second.
Sure.
Tell me.
You might not like my response.
No, but you started out by saying we're talking the truth. So I expect it to be truthful at least. Have you seen many persons defending the BVI more than me in the House of Assembly?
Well, that was going to be my next bit of my response to you. That I have not seen that. And, I have this conversation every single day because it comes up every single day. Because I say to people that, and I love my I'm really pro Virgin Islands. And I'm going to do whatever I can do to protect this legacy. For me, it goes all the way back to 1776, as much as people want to say whatever they want to say, I don't really. But those people that are ancestral Virgin Islanders that have been leading us to this point has done the total opposite to what they're saying should be happening. You, I find, have fought more for our culture, to preserve our heritage, and so forth. And you get up every single day and you fight for, and I can't come across anything. I like to go do my homework and my research, and I can't come across anything on decision. And yes, you can hold the cabinet all liable. Apparently you have to, because you guys come out united around one decision. But ancestral Virgin Islanders have given away some of our best land for money under the table, for villas up in Oil Nut Bay, for villas all over the place. They've given away our seabed rights. To this day, they cannot come up with ways to protect Virgin Islanders in any meaningful way in terms of being pushed out in terms of being the lesser number of, so the fight for me doesn't mean anything at that point, because those who I feel should be fighting for us or was tasked to have not done so.
As I said, here in the BVI, people...
Well, I should say modern day.
People
in the past
sometimes
25 years.
make up things for their own purposes, and then they sell these things to other people as if it's the gospel. During the COI, for instance, when we're going through the legislation, my family would tell you, I looked through those things with a fine-tooth comb. Went sleep the night, wake back up the morning, knew those laws, the back of my hand, and went out fearlessly. Fearlessly. And at the expense of singing, and I'm not boasting, some of those laws would not have been as good as they ended up being if I was not in the House of Assembly, particularly the ones that had to do with the police and different things, because of the knowledge that I had coming from my legal background. I remember being when I became the Minister for Education back in 2012. We had, I think it was, we had a culture period, a cultural week or something during, I think it was in November. My very first one I went to as minister. I went there, we had a band came in or something. It was planned before I came in as minister. When I went there, Cindy, everybody had on all kind of different piece of cloth.
Yeah.
I called my PS the next morning. I said, PS, I ain't going back to the morning thing like so, You see, everybody had on a different piece of cloth, like pure confusion. I said, this is what I want. And we sat down and we got the territorial dress, the territorial song, the territorial signs and symbols, our national dish, and all of those things that help to protect the uniqueness of the Virgin Islands. Bearing in mind, you had people who were probably ancestral in that seat before me as education minister.
Right.
And a major push went with national pride and so on. Every time someone comes to my office, it's a joy for me to assist them in any way I can. And I'd move mountains to do that. And the people who come to me can tell you that. So for anybody to ever come and try to make it look as if I don't love the BVI and I don't love BVI landers, it's completely ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's completely ludicrous.
Yeah. I'm going to go back and I'm going to come forward.
Yes.
And again, I know you're limited on what you can say, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Yes.
Did the governor, that's Duncan, back in, well, you were in government, so this will be back in 2018, around that time. Did the governor, you see, because I want to, there's something that I want to do here tonight, because a big part of who I am is advocacy for the BVI.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm frustrated with when I hear certain people speak,
right, and
the things they say, and you know that they're working from their own agendas and they don't really care for the people. They're working from their own agendas, and they want what they want at any cost. And whoever gets in the way of that, they're going to do whatever they have to do to bring the house down. So did the governor Duncan back then threaten a COI on the pair if your cabinet had not released Claude as head of port? You can plead the fifth. If you say you don't know, it means you're lying. So the best thing you could do is plead the fifth.
Yeah,
I'm answering for you.
I know you're answering for me. I don't want to answer that. I'll tell you why I don't want to answer it. Because whatever happens in cabinet, I try my utmost. So, I mean, the thing is, what I don't know, it's probably good research I should do. How long are you required to keep?
It's a long time.
Cabinet confidentiality. What I will say to you that
is that something you're willing to change when you get into?
Well, it depends, because we're in the Westminster system. We also have we're working along with the United Kingdom as well. So it's not that simple in terms of a one person decision. I think it's a universal thing for persons who practice the Westminster system of government. What I would say, there were some concerns about having Mrs. Skelton Klein return. That's the most I would say.
Okay.
Okay.
From the governor, from the then governor. That's where the concerns were coming from.
Cindy, I can't go.
I'll take it as that.
I can't go any further.
All right. I'm going to go on to this question.
Sure.
After the elections of 2019,
Yes.
in my eyes, and there are other people in their eyes, it appeared that you walked away. It seems, you had gone into the night. Why did you give up? Why didn't you continue to try to lead the party? I'm gonna check my phone for questions as well.
Okay. I can't say, Cindy, that I walked away. I don't think I did at all. As a matter of fact, even during that period, particularly I remember as well during the COVID period, that I would lend my voice on issues that I thought were not right in terms of decision making, particularly when it surrounded human rights and so on for persons. I would usually have my back to school events and so on. I started to send the products down to Family Support Network to help families that were having a difficult time and so on. I moved around the community like I would normally do. What I did is I respected the government. I had to respect the choice of the people. They'd elected a government to serve, and so you had to let them serve rather than trying to trip them up. But whenever there were issues that I could lend my voice to, I lent my voice to it. I don't think I hid at all. I don't think anybody can say I hid. You can't expect me to be up and down like I got elected. I have to work and do other things. And I have to give the government a chance to do what they're doing.
And that's understood and appreciated. But at the end of the day, you were elected inside your party
as a party leader.
As the party leader. So from that perspective, I'm saying that he's going to be defensive on me tonight, but hold on. You appear to have walked away, because how does it work in the party? Shouldn't there another convention should have happened to remove you as leader and a new leader appointed? Well, did that happen? Like why are you not?
Let me tell you what I did. And I'm being as frank as and truthful as I possibly can with you. When I lost the election, I called Honorable Penn. And I said to him, we went to Maria's. I invited him to Maria's. I think it was for a drink. I said to him, you're elected, you're leader of the opposition. The party was in shambles because obviously PVIM had broken off and we had lost half the party base and so on. I said to him, well, you concentrate on doing a leader of the opposition thing. Let me work on rebuilding the party.
Right.
Honorable Penn said no. He said that you lost the election and he wanted to be the leader of the party. I gave it to him. That's why I resigned.
So you did resign?
I resigned because of that, because I did not want, because there's always this narrative out there that Myron is power hungry, struggling for power. I didn't want to be part of that. You asked for it, you wanted it, I gave it to him.
But did you approach it in terms of, you wanted to continue leading the party, or
it wasn't even from the angle of wanting to lead.
Right.
It was more I wanted to help to rebuild the party.
Right.
Because it was broken.
And you were basically asked to step away.
Yeah, he said he wanted it because he won, and I gave it to him. I went back to my office and I wrote my resignation letter. I wasn't getting in any fight with anybody over that sort of a thing.
Okay.
And so that's why I walked away from it. That's exactly what happened.
Okay. All right. So if we're being honest, what is your relationship with Honorable Skelton and Penn like at this moment? And do you see any path to a reconciliation or any unification for the sake of the territory?
Well, I will say this to you, Cindy. I don't hold malice. I don't have a vindictive, malicious bone in my body. I don't know if something got left out of me when I was being made, but it doesn't exist in me. And I am professional. I'm cordial, and I can work with anybody in the political realm once it's in the best interest of the country. So nothing is off the table as it relates to me in terms of a reconciliation. What happened in the formation of the alliance, and it's important for people to understand this, we were going to the House of Assembly in a way that we were not as effective as we needed to be because we were working in silos. You had Honorable Skelton, Honorable Fraser with his PU. You had myself and Honorable Penn with NDP, and then you had Honorable Skelton, Turnbull, and Meta with PVIM. Sometimes you would see the duplication of questions in the House. We
saw that.
And anytime you don't have that synergy working together, you're not as effective as you need to be. And I didn't believe that we were serving the people of the country in the best way that we could. Now, and we've said, and what I'm saying to you has been said before. After the elections of 2023, because there was an attempt to try to get the NDP and the PVIM back together. I was in a meeting. I played my role. I came back in as 6th district rep. Honorable Penn was the acting chairman or chairman, so I let him do what he wanted to do. I was there with him in a meeting with Honorable Skelton. There was, and I didn't agree with everything because part of what they wanted to do was one be premier for 2 years and one be premier for the other 2 years, and it wasn't in this musical chairs thing with the country. But I know they were waiting on a response to come back from Honorable Skelton after a meeting. I don't think he ever came back. And so the parties went their separate ways and everybody went and they did their thing and we saw the results of that. The people of the country tried their best with us in 2023. Now, granted, the Verdansk Party should not have gotten as many seats, but they got that many seats because we were not as structured and organized as we needed to be. NDP was still in the same state that I left it in 2019. And PVIM was not any better. The two parties were still 2019. Half of this here and half of that there. Nobody had done any meaningful work to build those structures back up. To be a single viable force, or for one to cancel out the next because of its viability. They were basically at the same position that they were. And that's why they faltered in 2022. Because the work that needed to be done was not done. I saw some advancement in PVIM, I must tell you that. But NDP, I didn't see much of it when I returned.
And this is the work you wanted to do.
This was the work I wanted to do.
Okay.
And Cindy is one thing, whether people like me or hate me, I like to work and I could work. If you give me the thing, you'll get it done. And you'll get it fast and good. And that is the work that I wanted to do to get the NDP back, get all the district committees and associations back, just get the whole structure back. Because I returned back in 2023 to NDP with no executive, just one person, Myron, and nothing else. And so the party went into elections hoping to win without a structure. People were on the ticket and you didn't have all the arms working.
Can I ask you, because whether maybe you want to admit it or not, you were still an NDP insider. So when you say that you met one person, how is that even possible, given the foundation that was there with the founders of the NDP? And I'm not talking about the elected reps, the ministers, Pickering, those, the founding members.
But the founding members of a party don't play a role in terms of the executive or the running of the party per se. And that is not just the case with the NDP or PVIM or Verdansk Party. The founding members sometimes come mostly when, because remember you have to, it's a convention, you must have to be able to get those executive positions.
Yeah, but where were the members of the party?
The members
all of those people.
Some went one way.
So there was nothing in place, bringing them together, holding nothing.
It was whatever it was not sufficient.
Okay.
But to get back to my story, after the 2023 elections, I met with Honorable Penn and I said, look, you have to try to unite these two parties. I said, you were the person who have to do it, right? Not that I didn't believe that Honorable Skelton can do it, but Myron is younger, more energetic, should be able to put it together. Didn't happen. Later on down the year, I know Honorable Mitch and Honorable Meta approached Honorable Penn as well to try to see how we can bridge the gap with the two political parties. Then they came, both Honorable, and I have to give them credit, Mitch and Meta, because they tried their best to try to see how they can pull the factions back together. They came to me individually. I don't even think that one had known that the other one was coming to meet with me.
Right.
And so we discussed it. And I when I was speaking to Honorable Penn in my mind, I'm saying to myself, and I expressed this to him, that you have a split with NDP, you have a split with PVIM. What we need to do is to create a new entity of course, blended of the two.
Right.
Of the two. Allow PVIM to, PVIM walked off. You didn't want him to come back into NDP feeling as if,
right.
They
really want the beg. Yeah.
You're right. You wanted people to you wanted to come on a fair, on a clean platform where everybody meet there. We build out this structure, take the best out of both, and develop a new constitution, a new structure, have fresh elections, and who win, and we move forward. I took that concept because that's a concept when you're merging two companies together. That's what you basically do. And that thought was rejected.
By who?
By Penn rejected it first. And then Honorable Meta and Honorable Trumbull went to see Honorable Skelton and said to him, look, we have been talking through this whole thing before. We want to go form an alliance with Myron from the NDP so that we can try to be more, some of the same concerns I had about effectiveness. Honorable Skelton gave them his blessing. He did. They came back and they told me, but I didn't take their word for it. I went to him. And I said, these two gentlemen came to you? He said, yes. He said, I'm going to go with you. I looked at him like I'm looking at you now. I said, you plan to run again? He said to me, and this is exact words, it will take a miracle for me to change my mind to run again. So we come and we form an alliance only to see something different happen, which is reminiscent of what happened with me in 2019. Now, we wouldn't know how to plan to consider you if you say you're running again. If you're running again, just tell us that you're running again so at least everything can be properly considered. But those two gentlemen got the blessing of Honorable Skelton to come join me. That's why they would not have come unless they had that blessing, because that was important to them. And it was on that basis they came and we formed our alliance together, only to have a 180 done when the alliance was formed.
And then to make it look like you...
Yeah, we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Not that exactly what I've said to you is exactly what took place. And then we still even tried after that to try to see how we can pull the factions together. They're the two leaders.
Yeah.
So I'm figuring that the two leaders will come and make a decision to try to, because if you're a leader, that's what you do.
Yeah.
I got so tired. I said, man, nobody wanted to take the initiative. So I took the initiative. And I called the first meeting. We went to Treasurer and I sent because we always communicate through WhatsApp. I sent a message out, look, let's meet. And we got a date. We agreed. We met up there. I said what I wanted to say in terms of how I believe the coming back should come together. They both said at that time, they know we need to come back together, but they don't like that approach. At that meeting, they didn't say what kind of approach they wanted.
Yeah, but why couldn't it just be put on the table for debate and a vote?
Well,
and may the best structure win.
I understand what you're saying. So we were waiting then for them to come back after we met the first time. Nothing would happen. Time passed. Honorable Meta, the newest member among us, called the meeting at Treasurer again to say, we met with you all before. We ain't hearing nothing. What are we doing? Honorable Penn's response was he ain't got nothing more to say from what he said the last time. The meeting lasted 28 minutes, by the way. Honorable Skelton, Meta was allowed to put the questions because he, in his mind, he's a fresh member in. He's not part of what happened with PVIM and NDP, and he needed to be allowed that chance to be able to understand what was happening. And he asked some pointed questions. He asked, well, who's meeting? Who's, because remember they were saying they were meeting.
Yeah.
So who are the people in these meetings? Oh, we can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell us? So when can we be a part of these meetings so that we can help to pull things together? Or we can tell you when we're ready. So when do you think we might be able to get the merger between the two parties happen? Give us until the end of April. And this was in February. I think it was February or March, right? Probably March. Early March, late February. So we walked off. What is this? What is going on here? And then that is when these gentlemen said, "Man, we had enough. We want to be a more formidable opposition. We're going to put our support behind of you. We're going to send it. Let us work on this letter and get it down to the governor." That was done. The letter went down. And what was supposed to happen at the end of April? Remember, at the end of February, they're saying April, you know. When I became leader of the opposition, you get an announcement the following week that the two-party merge.
Right.
Well, if merge how?
Right. One of the things that I want to get some clarity on from you in terms of that, again, there is a conversation where you didn't tell them, or the three of you didn't tell them that you were going to have the press conference and announce the alliance, the unity of the opposition.
We didn't say that we were going to have a press conference.
Right.
We did. I don't feel
but they knew everything.
I don't feel that we
leading
needed
up
to say that.
Okay.
You knew everything else up to that, because even the couple days before we had the press conference, I called Honorable Penn again, and we went down to this place called Botella.
Yes.
They got some nice wine down there. I invited him there to tell him this is what I think we need to do. So it was not as if anybody did anything in any secrecy.
Right.
And remember, Honorable Skelton had already indicated at that time that they're going to take a miracle for him to run back again. So if he's not running back again, why are you wasting time having all these long conversations for? But out of respect, it still went to him. And so to give an impression as if, why are we going to invite you to a press conference when you're against what it is we're standing for? We're going to come to the press conference to say.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
So I want to say two things, and then we're going to take a short break and come right back. If there's one thing that's consistent and that's true, and I had this conversation a few times, and I had it up to last week with some of your NDP founders and insiders, because I try to have conversations with everybody, because I think I'm more tired than you with a lot of what's happening. And, I said to them, you can tell me if I'm lying or if this is true. And anybody listening, because all of us have watched all of you guys run every election cycle, what the conversation is on the street, who's saying what, blah, blah, blah. And every election cycle, the Honorable Ronnie Skelton says, I'm not contesting the next election. Every single time. It's something consistent that he says and does, and then, he turns around and yes, I'm running. Or you see his support there to run. The next thing that I want to find out, and I have asked your NDP, I don't call them your heads, if you want to call them your godheads, those people at the top, you know who I'm talking about.
I don't know exactly.
I've asked most of them, what is the problem? Why have they been unable to bring you and Honorable Penn together? They said to me that they've tried and tried and tried, and Honorable Penn does not ever come to the table. He does not want to come to the table with you. Why is that?
Well, you have to ask him. I can't answer that. I am somebody.
But you're his son's godfather, right? That you guys.
No, he is the godfather for my first daughter.
Okay.
Yes.
So my whole thing is that you guys are that close. So where is the communication breaking down?
All I can say to you is that there is no ill will, nothing on my part. I am willing to work with anybody once it is in the best interest of the people of the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
And the only thing that I'm insisting on is that we need to come on a level platform, because you need to bring the two structures. If the two structures came back together in the right way to make everybody feel valued, it is the best.
So then here's my follow-up to that, because I'm trying to understand these party structures.
Yes.
Kind of that's why I just move on my own, because I'm a radical. I don't have time to discuss this cup in 3 meetings. I'm going to talk about this cup and I'm going to move it right away.
Right.
Because I don't have the time and energy.
Yes.
Well, I'm assuming that since Myron is the chairman now, he would have to call the meeting. So nobody else can call a convention for the NDP.
Well, I don't know if any changes have been made to the Constitution since then, because since we had the press conference, I wasn't invited back to any more meetings, which is fine. Okay. So I don't know what is happening.
But prior, what would it have been?
Prior, what should have happened with the NDP is that the NDP needed to rebuild its executive arm. Okay. And the way to do that would have been through an election. Okay. And I spoke to Honorable Penn as well.
So you feel Honorable Penn has held the party captive?
I believe that he has not done the right things in terms of holding a convention. Okay. You needed to hold a convention for leadership, not just for yourself, but for all the other arms that are important to be able to build the structure back. And that never happened. The NDP's last convention was in 2018. We're in 2025. That's ridiculous.
Do you blame yourself in any way for the follow, like any of it? And if there is anything that you could do differently, is there anything that you think about that?
I mean, there are always things that we could have done differently and perhaps better. But what I've spoken to you tonight is and I've never, if you notice, I've held these things. You know why? And I accepted your invitation. I consulted with some people before I accepted.
They tell you don't come?
I even consulted with people on what I'm supposed to say tonight. Really? Because, Cindy, I don't like mess. I can't do this in this. I don't like comments. I don't get caught up in melee. I don't like those things at all. I like productive things. So even here, having spent an hour with you, and we haven't touched anything yet in terms of moving the country forward, it's making me a little uncomfortable because I don't like.
You know what? We have to get through some of this. Because some of this stuff needs to be cleared up before we could get.
I got you. But I want you to understand the person that I am. And so I am speaking to you very frankly and saying some of the things I'm saying now, only because some of my friends have said to me, Myron, you need to clear the air because they're out there having their surrogates make up stories and making me look like I am some sort of a person who can't be worked with. I'm somebody who sabotage. And what I've said to you, and I challenge any one of them. I challenge any one of them to dispute anything I said here this evening, because what I've said to you is the gospel truth. But I've held it, and I've not said anything to my own detriment.
Right.
And so tonight, I don't want to talk about it no more. But if somebody come and say something, I ain't sure I can come back and say something. But I wanted to clear the air once and for all. And Myron, without consulting with people today, I call about 20 people today. And them say, Myron, it's time you talk the thing then. And lay it out, because people are going out there trying to make you look a particular way, which is not so. All I want to do is work for the country, Cindy. All I want to do is to do my best to help this country. I believe in the country and I want to work. And that's what you saw in the vote of no confidence. Right. That is the passion you saw coming out. I wasn't just talking because I want to talk. It pains me to see what I'm seeing happening in the country.
Yeah. Okay, on that, we're going to take a short break and we will be right back. Welcome back to this special edition of Cut Deep. We have the Honorable Myron Walwyn in the house with me tonight. He is the leader of the opposition and he is the member for the 6th District. We're gonna get back into these questions, but I want to just say something really quickly. Millie, Commerce. We ain't having no Millie and Commerce tonight. And might I say or add, do you remember the COI?
Yes.
Until the COI, everything that came out in the COI was what? Millie, Commerce on the road. Information we pick up by the speed bump. And you know what? It came out in the COI as what? I know you agree with some of it, but facts.
Okay.
It came out as facts. A lot of things came out as facts. Okay? So it has sounded like little, because we the, talk it how we talk it in our little island talk, and we make it sound interesting because we taking information like that. But a lot of what we discussing here really isn't melee, or we trying to create commerce. I'm trying to get down to the bottom of conversations that I myself am wary of. And I don't like to say that I have inside information, but I talk to everybody and I want to know what everybody have to say. And I put my own story together, to be honest. I make it make sense for me. So yeah, basically. Okay. Ain't no commerce here tonight.
No problem.
We'll have some news cycles out of it.
Well, you have me here tonight.
but so, I have him here. Yeah. And I'm going to try to get through the rest of these questions really quickly. I have a lot. I might have to bring him back for part 2 because he does have to tell us what he's going to do with this country. But let's do this. You spoke a bit about the alliance and how that came about, that whole backstory. But what I want to touch on, because people are still a bit testy. And I had this, this conversation erupted, part of it, in our chat, or Guava Media chat. There's almost 700 people in that chat. Okay. Are you in there? Yeah, you're in there. You came out one time and I was like, get your butt back in.
It was an error.
It was an error.
It was an error.
And so there are people still testy about that, the fact that, you wrote down to the governor, took the opposition leadership from the Honorable Ronnie Skelton, and, people feel that you betrayed him. And so I want you to speak to these two things.
What the first one?
Democratic and governance process in terms of, how you acquire becoming opposition leader. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the way they're saying the way you did it, I think it's just the fact that you did it is irritating for just a segment of people, and they're peddling that as you betrayed the Honorable Walwyn.
Let me take the first part first. Mm-hmm. Betray. If you betray somebody, then it means that in order to betray them, you must have been loyal to them before. My loyalty is to the country, not to an individual, and maybe that's where those people are going wrong. Mm-hmm. Additionally, Honorable Skelton was in a different political party from myself. So I don't understand where the loyalty develops. I need to understand that. But if there's any loyalty, my loyalty is to the people, not to individuals, right? That's the very first thing. The Constitution sets out how somebody becomes the leader of the opposition. The person who commands the majority of the support of the persons on the opposition. And by that definition, it just tells you it's a very fluid position, because that can change anytime. Right. And so we have to not get married to these things, to think that's a part of the problem we have. Mm-hmm. We think that things belong to us, that they're willed to us.
Yeah, but I also think we're very selective, though.
We're very selective, and I'll get into that. I'll give you an example. Okay. I'll give you an example of it. We think that things are willed to us. If the majority of the members, like what happened on the first occasion, said that they placed their confidence in Albert Skelton, and that everybody fell in line and did what they were supposed to do, and now that has changed, and then all of a sudden means that because it changed, you're acting differently. Because when Albert Skelton was in the opposition, I was a very active member of the opposition.
You were
extremely active and very supportive. Mm-hmm. It changed, and now you see a different behavior coming forward. But I remember, I remembered it when I was just coming to driving up here, Cindy. Back in the same 2018, it was about 2 months before election. Honorable Foy was the leader of the opposition.
Correct.
After winning the leadership of the Virgin Islands Party. It was him and Fraser over there. And he was the lead. We were having a sitting of the House, and Honorable Foy came in and assumed his seat right at the front as opposition leader.
Yeah.
And Fraser sat next to him. We noticed that the House wasn't starting because something was happening. All of a sudden, Foy was then told by the Speaker privately that he was no longer opposition leader. 2 months before election.
Right.
2 months before election, I watched him get up and walk from his opposition and went to the tail end, because by then he was always junior to Honorable Fraser, because Honorable Fraser was a deputy premier before. So he was junior to him, save for the fact that he was the chairman of the party.
Right.
And that's what became the opposition leader. He went to the tail end, and Honorable Skelton came to the top.
To the head.
Without any notice at all, because there's no notice required.
Right.
So we cannot have selective outrage when it suits us. And that is part of the problem that we are having. Our principles are somewhat compromised. Our views on things sometimes are only based on who it is and who we like. You can't grow in a country that way. Things, if you have principle, you have principle, regardless of who it is. So, but there's never any notice given to any opposition leader that you're going to be removed. The governor, I believe, would have given a call after he signed the instrument. And maybe if there needs to be a change in the way it's done, let's say maybe there needs to be a change, revisit it. But what happened there is nothing different from what has happened in the past.
I agree. I do agree. So we're going to get into, I want to talk about the country a bit. So we're going to mix it up a bit. But given the issues with the opposition, how is the PAC committee functioning? Is it functioning as it should?
We've been having meetings of PAC. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be making some announcements pretty soon as a chairman about some things we're doing, looking into certain things. We went to Jersey as an opposition and to review how the Public Accounts Committee works, to try to beef up ours. We've done some extensive work over the period, and we're going to be looking at certain projects and so on. Right now, we're in the process of getting ready for hearings into certain specific things, but we're working through the details to be able to call government ministries and so on to the Public Accounts Committee to speak about different contracts and so on. But as I said, some of that will come out. But we've been doing the work.
So it hasn't really affected the work of PAC.
It could be a bit better. But I'm not going to complain at this point. If it comes to a point where people are deliberately trying to stymie, you will hear my voice on it. We're not there yet. I see some signs of it, but I will leave that for now. I'll err on the side of caution with my words. But the Public Accounts Committee will continue to work to do what it's supposed to do.
So this question, some of these questions that I'm asking you now are from the public.
Yes.
You haven't announced an actual political party.
No, we haven't.
But a lot of us are viewing it as that and as it being inevitable. So what is your view? And I'm going to have to say it now. Say if you did form a party out of the alliance, what would your view on a split vote if the alliance and the NDP are both fielding candidates? If the opposition cannot be unified in one party to contend the election, do you see a situation where both agreed not to field candidates in the same district to stop vote splitting in the hope of a coalition government? Or do you think that you, if you formed the alliance into a party, can take the House?
Well, you keep saying me.
When I say you,
right?
Yeah,
the alliance is a group of individuals, right? It's three of us in the alliance. I don't want to say anything about the alliance in terms of a political organization at this point.
Okay.
If and when we make that decision, we will make an announcement to that effect. So I really don't want to say anything at this point about it.
Okay. How soon do you think?
If and when we make that decision,
okay,
we will.
So are you still hoping? Are you still hoping to bring the NDP alliance PVIM back together?
I am willing, and I know I can speak for the other two members of the alliance, to work with anybody in the best interest of the country. But of course, we have indicated how we think it's supposed to be done, and we're inviting.
So you're hard and fast on that.
Well, not with that hard. It is the best way to do it.
Okay.
To make sure that everybody's on even footing. I think it's certainly the best approach.
Okay. While PVM is, and this is not a question here, while PVM is a young party, I'll say young, and now the Honorable Skelton has said that's falling away anyway. Some look at it as the National Democratic is one of the foothold parties in the territory, and you're asking to put away, an entire party, a whole brand, a whole. How do you speak to that?
Part of the problem with our democracy is that we have loyalty to parties and not loyalty to the country. And we have to get away from that. Not because you might be a customer voting for NDP or PVIM or VIP, and they bring candidates who are not quality candidates to add anything in terms of moving the country forward. You can't just have this blind loyalty to a political party. I don't subscribe to that. I choose a political party if the party's direction, if their views, if their ethos and all the rest of it is in line with how I want to see my country move forward. That's how I make a decision. And the political party is made up of individuals.
Yeah.
If you have individuals who are perhaps not the best persons to be taking these leadership roles, you can't go and vote for them just because they're I don't view things in that light at all. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I can't ask you as a party leader. So what I can ask you is, just sitting in your seat as the opposition leader, is there any way that you can unify this territory, because it's well divided?
Well,
is that something that you think that you can do?
No one person can do that. I think it requires all of us to be able to do that, and we must have a better understanding, in my view, as to what unity really means. We, for instance, holding the government to account for their stewardship to the people sometimes is viewed by people as disunity. It is not disunity. It is part and parcel of unity, because part of unity is to make sure that you have peace, and in order to have peace, things must be done the right way. Our job is to hold the opposition. The opposition's job is to hold the government certainly to account, and all of us have a role to play. In it. Sometimes, and I've watched this, even when, for instance, when we brought out the territorial dress, there were people who did not wear the territorial dress because it was done on the National Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So when you do things like that, once there's a government in place, yes, you have to try your best to support the government. Yes, you call out the things that need to be called out. But our interest has to be first and foremost to our country. And once you understand that concept, once you put country before party, that whole issue, and we may not agree on everything, but we ought to agree on the things that are in the best interest of the country together, regardless of whether you're supporting this party or you're supporting that party. One person, or even a politician can't do that. It requires the effort of everybody to do it.
But don't you think there's an energy that a leader should have that drives things like that?
I think there is.
Do you think you have that capacity?
I think I do. You're going to have the detractors. the persons who may not want to see me in that position, maybe because they don't support me politically. Maybe might have some who might say, as you're saying, his parents are not from here. But you will have those too with any other leader that you have. The key thing is I do not believe that anybody can question my love for this country. I don't think that many persons could question what, along with a team, I can bring to moving this country forward. I believe I believe the things that the people have trusted me with, particularly my stewardship as education minister, speaks for itself. And even my efforts now, even before I became opposition leader, I'm very diligent about my work and do what needs to be done. If our interest is really to move the country forward in a positive way, I think I'm one of the persons who can certainly help to move it forward, at least at this time.
Okay. I want to address the vote of no confidence.
Sure.
You took a beating.
I did not take a beating.
I
did not take a beating.
I want to say just like everybody else, but I'm just playing.
Take a beating.
Just playing.
I did not take a beating. Some other people took a beating, but it wasn't Myron.
It's good to be able to laugh some of this stuff off, but I want to discuss the vote of no confidence, and in particular, the lack of support by the other opposition members. Mm-hmm. It really stung. It stung a lot of people. Okay. I don't think they realized how much they did. And anyway, I want to discuss it from that perspective. The government's members' response or lack thereof. I think none of us anticipated that, but if you could speak to that, and clarity for the public in terms of democracy and due process in good governance when it comes to things like vote of no confidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the first thing we have to we have to get in our minds, I think it's important to understand, is that a vote of no confidence is more than just seeing the dissolution of a parliament or the House of Assembly. If you're lucky enough to get that, then you consider yourself lucky. But it is more of an accountability device within our parliamentary democracy, where you hold the government to account by bringing the views of the people to them and force them to answer the concerns. I was under no illusions at all that the vote would be successful. That was not the objective at all. As a matter of fact, when we were in the National Democratic Party in government, we had 3 votes of no confidence, 3 motions of no confidence vote against us by 2 people.
Yeah.
But they brought them. They don't think that they could have been able to sway 5 or 6 of us to be able to get that. That was never on their thought, the issue. And Honorable Fraser himself probably brought 2. Yeah, he brought 2, I think, and Foy brought 1. But they wanted to be able to articulate, because when you look at the order of the day, you wouldn't normally on the order of the day get the chance and the liberty to speak on such broad issues for that length of time in any other part. Even under other business, you're given a time limit.
Right.
And you saw I took 3.5, and I could have gone for another. I could have gone longer because there were so many issues to be able to discuss, and so I was able to ventilate those issues. Now, I have to say, on the opposition side first, the motion was seconded by Honorable Turnbull. I debated, I think it was a Tuesday night, and then we returned to Thursday. Honorable Turnbull made it to the House before most persons on that day, including myself. And I remember him calling me when it was slightly after 10 and say, "Hey, where you are? I'm here waiting on you." But by then, half the government bench had gone to the funeral for Shabazz. And so Honorable Penn, Honorable Mata, Honorable Turnbull, myself, and Honorable Skelton sat there for the better part of an hour and change, waiting on them to return. I think even the speaker, because the substantive speaker, Ms. Mastercart, was out. She was out ill. So it was the deputy speaker, Honorable Dawson, in the chair. And I know that Honorable Turnbull had indicated to Honorable Dawson that he intended to debate.
Mm-hmm.
While we were there sitting and waiting, we see them coming. So he said, okay, Myron, I'm going to go and pick up something real quick at the bank so I don't have to come into town tomorrow. And then I'm going to pass by the funeral, and by the time I come back, they should be here. Honorable Mater, though, when I woke up that morning, I woke up to a message from him saying that he had a family emergency, and he's been taking care of his father and that sort of thing. And he was going to come, but he's going to come a bit late because he had to take care of this situation. When the government then came back, and to me, the proper thing to do, and I know if the substantive speaker was there, because the member had indicated he wanted to debate, and because we all sat there for an hour and change waiting on the government, it was the proper thing to do was to wait until.
But they never do the proper thing.
I know. The proper thing to do was to wait for Honorable Turnbull to return because he was on his way. Because he noticed he came there, he came there for the vote, but he missed the debate, and he was prepared to debate, right? But he came for the vote nonetheless. So we had 2 votes. He seconded it, and he voted in favor of it. The government refused to respond, which to me is almost an affront to democracy, an affront to the people, because all the issues raised in that vote of no confidence, bar none, are relevant issues on the minds of the public.
Yeah.
And they chose not to say one solitary word, playing politics, and then wait until they were under other business to raise the issues. The reason why is, if they raise the issues there, it would give me the right to reply.
Right.
And then know if they talk strictness, I can write down everything and fix all up.
Right.
So they rather not say anything and wait until under other business to start to talk and say a number of things. But the issues are still out there.
Yeah.
Are still out there, and it would have been a golden opportunity for them to be able to say, yes, this might be a problem, but this is what we are doing. No, you're wrong on this issue. It would have been a golden opportunity for the Premier to get up and speak on the $5 million for the Bank of Asia, particularly since I took him to task with evidence and showed you that he's not being truthful to the people. He had a perfect chance to get up and say what happened to the people's $5 million. He chose not to say a word, and then he has been now on a media tour. Ever since then, you were supposed to deal with the vote of no confidence and answer the things right in front of me so that we could have had a proper, vibrant debate, all for the betterment of the country and its people. And then, of course, you saw what happened with the other 2 members of the opposition. Honorable Skelton, the vote was exactly the same vote of no confidence that he wanted to bring or try to bring. We only made some slight changes, but substantively the same document if you would have seen it. He didn't debate and he abstained from it. If you abstain, it means that you're supporting what the government is doing. Yeah. That is how I do it.
Yeah.
Honorable Penn.
Well, they said he sat in his car and came in after the vote.
I didn't see him. I know when
I'm just saying what the streets say. Now that was a mess.
But when I know, as soon as the vote concluded, I saw him coming through the door. He didn't say anything to me, so I can't say any more than what I just saw. But nonetheless,
You're
I
such
think
a lawyer.
You have to go based on evidence. Evidence is important. But the key thing, though, I think, is that the people's message got to the government.
Yeah.
They heard it.
Well, they heard it, yeah.
They heard it. But they were not able to respond. They were not able to respond. And what you saw instead was a bunch of persons trying to give blind loyalty and make Premier Natalia Whitley feel as if he's doing such a great job. All because at the end of the day, they're just trying to protect themselves and protect their jobs. And that is the bad part about politics I don't like. Politics should be about people.
Yeah.
Your loyalty should be to the people, not to an individual. And if I'm a part of a group and I can't call out somebody who is not performing at the level that they should, then it tells me that I should not be there. It's not a political, it's a cult.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a cult.
Absolutely. It was very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
I'll say that. That was very unfortunate. I don't think that, I can't say about the government because, it'll be hard for us to get somebody to just talk badly about themselves. But like you said, they could have taken it from a particular angle. But when it comes to
we're doing, blah, 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 blah. We know that we have water challenges, but we are doing X, Y, Z.
Right.
You at least tell the people, give some hope, because the reality of it is that the people have to be governed by you for another year and a half.
Yeah.
So even though we are saying, yes, when the appropriate time comes, give us a chance to lead, the people still have to get to 2027. And your job is to get them there.
Correct.
And you have to explain to them what your plans are to move the country forward.
I think myself and many others, and of course there'll be those who, again, is blind loyalty. And so no matter what happens, it's blind loyalty. But I'll just speak for myself when I say Honorable Skelton and Honorable Penn. There's nothing they can get up and say between now to the next election that I would want to hear. No complaints, like nothing. Like they have taken away that from themselves. Like you cannot now complain about anything because you made yourself unavailable for this vote of no confidence. And so, yeah. So I want to move on to...
You're going to come here all night?
I plan to, but I only have like 4 more questions. I might think about some more while I go along, but we got about 4 more. Look at that. The people are just totally engaged. Like there's nowhere you can go. There's nowhere you can go. We have to please the people because I know it's going to be hell to get you back in this couch. I might have to go get a black one.
You won't have any more trouble
to see.
I promise you that.
Okay, so some believe, including the Honorable Lorna Smith, that you, Honorable Myron Walwyn, that you were out of line for seeking the governor's assistance in bringing an investigation forward in the Bank of Asia debacle. Others believe, though, that given your own investigation by the Auditor General, you are now able to see the value and importance of independent investigation and its impact on good governance. Can you speak to the request for an investigation by the governor and the whole debacle around that?
Let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you what happened. I think it's important for us to understand the laws and read the laws so that we can know what they say and we know where the gaps are and where we need to go for certain support. Now, I asked the Premier, I think it's 2 sittings back on probably this previous sitting that we just had, to give me the bank balances.
Right.
At the end of December and at 2024 and at the end of May 2025. He gave me the end of December and he gave me until the end of April 2025. He said he couldn't do May because they were reconciling some stuff, which I understand. When I looked at the information given to me, there were 2 accounts that the government had in Bank of Asia. There was one with about $35,000 on it. I don't think the government put $35,000 on it. I think that might have been interest on money they put there before. It was called a corporate account. And then I saw another account that had $5 million on it. Now, this is at the end of April. Now, in January, the owners of the Bank of Asia had filed bankruptcy. And as I said before, the Premier, in his position as Minister of Finance, knew or ought to have known that this was happening, and that the bank was not a safe place to put taxpayers $5 million. He should have known that. Now, after it was revealed, and I have to give kudos to you, Cindy, for bringing that stuff, bringing that to the fore, because when I wrote my question initially, I didn't know about the $5 million in the bank, It's when I read your article. And then when I got the paper from him in the house, I said, oh, $5 million, Cindy knows what she's saying. And that's how it came to light, really. Because even the Financial Services Commission came with an article, with a statement after you released what you released the same night, 9 o'clock in the night when everybody's sleeping. And so the Premier then came up with a statement on a Friday around 4:30. And I caught it in time because I was at work late that Friday, and I caught it. And there were some things that stood out. The first one was where he said that
He'll do an internal
It was,
audit.
no, that's the second part. The first one was where he placed the responsibility for putting government's money into banks on the civil servants, so that it was them and ministers don't have any part to play in that. That was a lie. When you read the Public Finance Management Act, the authority is given to the Minister of Finance to say where government money goes. And it can't be word of mouth. It has to be written. So you're supposed to write to the financial secretary saying, put X amount of dollars in X, Y, Z.
Well, we know because one Auditor General had just not long ago gotten into trouble for that. So we know that that was a lie.
So that was a lie. The second one is that he has ordered an internal audit. And the public would be aware, essentially telling the public they're going to be aware as to the findings of the internal audit. When you read the Internal Audit Act, the director is supposed to give the audit to the department head or to the permanent secretary. It doesn't go anywhere else after that. It's an internal audit. It's called internal, meaning it's an internal management tool, and it is not for public consumption. That was a lie as well, right? Those were the two. There was a third one that I can't remember, but those were the two most blatant ones there. Now, in order to get to the bottom, because the question to me really is this: there's no issue that the Premier and the Minister of Finance has the authority to put the money in the bank. That's not in question. The question is why you do it at a time like that, when the bank was in such a fragile state. An audit can answer that question. An internal audit. An internal audit, nor the Auditor General's report can answer that question. They can answer other things in terms of the failings and so on, vis-a-vis the law and different things. But that is a question that you can't answer in an audit. That question is going to take you outside of the purview of the Auditor General and the internal audit. And the only person who have all those things under them that could answer that question is the governor. That is why the question had to go there. Now, he wrote me back and said that he asked the Auditor General to look into the matter. Now, obviously, you can't direct the Auditor General, but you can ask for her to look. I imagine she will be looking. And maybe out of the audit that comes from her, which is the one that can be laid, because the internal audit can be laid, then perhaps you might set up there's some next steps and so on. But if you really want to get to what happened to our $5 million, why it was put there in the first place, that question you can't get it from an ordinary audit. And that's why I wrote to the governor to ask him to look into it. Now, some people are concerned, keep the governor out of our thing. What are you going to tell the governor this? What are you going to tell the government? The governor is still part of our constitutional framework. He's still a part, whether we like it or we don't like it. He's still a part of our constitutional framework. And at the end of the day, the Premier could give the answer to the people. He could give the answer. Because by now...
Well, he can and he can't, right?
He could get the answer. He has to have the answer available. It may not be something that we want to hear, but he's not giving us the answer. We have to go to somebody who can give us the answer, because the people need to know what happened to their $5 million. And he had a perfect chance. You saw him at the vote of no confidence? Come dress up in it's two green suit he had on, you know.
It wasn't the same one?
The Tuesday he had on a green suit, and he found another one, bring it Thursday.
It had kind of
looked like a leprechaun. Looked like a leprechaun on them 2 days. Just defending color. So he had on green socks and all. That's the level of foolishness. And up to now, you can't answer the people's question on the major things. And you had a chance to speak to the people on the $5 million, and you chose not to do it.
Okay. So that was the basis.
Yes.
Okay. Have you fully read the Constitutional Review Report?
I read most of it.
Okay.
I have to reread it again, which I will. I certainly will do.
So I want to ask you where you come on a few things. For example, the Premier being at large, running at large.
I understand where and I had that view before, because I raised it before during a campaign. And to me, and I'll tell you where it came from, and I understand where it's coming from the people. What the people are trying to say, or what I was saying at the time when I raised that, was that you want to have a Premier who is accountable to everybody. You don't want somebody who could just win by 200 votes and then they could go up there and take all the resources in their district and don't look after everybody else. People want to be able to remove that person. They want greater accountability. The problem is that it's going to be difficult to do it in our existing Westminster system. It is not consistent with the Westminster system of government, because you could end up in a situation where you have a premier who is elected at large, but has a cabinet that is not affiliated to him at all. He gets absolutely nothing done in cabinet, because if it's him alone,
right,
and you have the other 4 cabinet ministers coming from a different political party, he does not. He's just sitting duck, because cabinet goes based on a majority vote. So it doesn't work.
So you have to change a lot
it
of
will
the
call
structure.
for total reorientation of our structure, including looking at a federal system, in order for us to be able to do that. But at the heart of it, I understand what more concern is, what people need to do, or what I would suggest that we do. In the existing framework that we have, you have something even better, because we have to start to remove our emotions from voting. That's where we get ourselves in trouble. Yes, you want to vote for somebody who you like, which is it's important and helpful to our emotions, right? But you also want to vote for people who are competent, who can get the job done. We have to start to let that be the first and foremost thing in our minds. If there's a premier that you don't want, because we have 5 votes.
Right.
If there's a premier that you don't want, you have his 4 at-large members. Don't vote for them.
Right.
That is the way to get the premier out of government, because he can't win without them at large. If you look at the trajectory of government, there's never been a premier who have never gotten no at large that won the seat. So you know, yes, you might not want to do it because you might like 1 or 2 persons. That's why I say remove the emotions from it and use the tools that we have available to us to help us until we can decide what sort of system we're going to do going forward.
Would you be contesting the next election as an at-large member?
No.
Okay. What is your position?
Okay, let me put in a plug and say I love it.
Sorry.
You just asked me the question, just spun off like so. I have to put in a little speed that I love the people from District 6. They know I love them.
So you don't love us at large too? You ran at large too, yeah?
Charity begins at home. I love everybody, but I love the people of District 6 in particular. Good night to you all if you're listening to me tonight. You can just ask me the question.
They're right on there. They're right on there. I can count them out. They're right here on the live.
And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Those people have shown me love more than anybody else. I ran with a charge on my back, and those people voted for me 2-1 over the incumbent.
Yeah.
What greater love than that? I gotta love them back. So don't ask me them questions and just turn off like so. You gotta give me put them a little things in. How are you?
All right, buddy. What is your position on increasing the at-large to like 6, so we can have additional ministers? That would increase the House of Assembly to about 15 members.
I hear people say it. What are we trying to achieve when we do that? What are we trying to achieve?
Well, I think one of the things in terms of if we're talking about ministers, we have some big ministries and we have quite a few ministries. And I know you feel like you're Hercules, but most of us are not Hercules, right? For example, if we talk about the premier has some major ministries under him, about 4 or 5. Yes, he has a couple junior ministers, but those are big portfolios. Can you, as one person, actually do justice to all those ministries? And I think that is where, the expansion, people are looking at the expansion, because there's more work to be done. And it's difficult for one person to handle immigration, labor, natural resources. If you have about 5 or 6 major tourism, financial services, it's a lot.
I understand.
Yeah.
So but I mean, the reason why I asked the question is because if you want to increase to have more ministries, it doesn't necessarily have to be at large.
Yeah.
It could, we have to probably find the most effective way for it to be done. Well, what I think, going off on a limb, and some people may disagree with me, and that's fine. I think we need to probably start to look at the Senate. At least have the conversation. Let me tell you why I say that. The primary job of a member elected to the legislature is not to be a government minister. your first order is to the House of Assembly to pass laws for good governance in
Right.
the country.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's through the passing of good legislation that you increase and improve the quality of life for people. I have seen, and I've seen it, and I'm not trying to make anybody feel less than, but I've sat in 3 houses of assembly where I see people making laws for people's life, totally disengaged.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of them ain't read the document, ain't have a clue in it. Get up and talk for 2 seconds, talk around the issue. When you're going to committee stage, they ain't read nothing. We need to start to have another layer of scrutiny on some of these bills, because and we have to be honest about it. Election is a popularity contest, mostly. The village idiot, once he's popular, could get in the House of Assembly.
Yeah.
Get in there, can't stroke nothing. And so you get bad laws and different things. And I'm not against having two more at large, but I'm saying it's and I'm not married to it, but from what I've seen, there's a need for I believe a different layer of scrutiny on some of the legislative processes that we have.
Okay.
Yes.
My final 2 questions for the night. I don't even know if I can ask you because you have not put forward a party.
Yes.
You have not said that you actually would be running to contest premiership in the next elections. I don't know if I can ask you them, but I'm going to anyway.
But I'm going to refer you back to my original response.
Well, I mean, even as the member for the opposition, you should be able, the leader of the opposition, you should be able to answer these 2 questions, because at the end of the day, that's a position that tomorrow you could actually be the premier. You never know, whatever turns out.
You have me here.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you these 2 questions, and we're going to go on a break, and we're going to come back before he leaves. I'm going to get him into a little bit of trouble, and then we're going to call it a night. What would your priority objective be for the territory as premier? Were you the premier and Minister of Finance and Tourism?
Yeah, we have to, anybody who is in that position, your first thought has got to be to improve the quality of life for the people of the country. And you do that by making sure that the main things that drive the economy of the country are there, so that those social services and different things they need to do, you can do them for the people. The economy of the country is flat on its back, Cindy.
Yeah.
And we have been saying at every turn to the premier that you have to pay more attention to this. The laws have helped us. When you look, for instance, at the Public Finance Management Act, and I've said this to him even as soon as we got into the House, the Act mandates that you have an economic plan for your 4-year period. We don't have that. It's important to have that, because everything else that we do spans from economic activity, education, social services.
Yeah.
If the economy is not buoyant and working well, small businesses doing well, employing people, you're collecting your tax base from those employees and so on. If you don't have a plan for that development, everything else is going to suffer, particularly if you're spending money but you're not bringing any back in. It also calls for an economic council, again, which does not exist. So you don't have any economic plan for the country. We have to get that done first and foremost. We have to look at tourism, as you said, and look at trying to improve our overnight stays. We have become so dependent on cruise ships. We're just rattling off numbers just to say we're rattling off numbers, but we have no idea what the dollar distribution is throughout the country. And everybody know, you've been involved in tourism. It's night and day when you have overnight visitors versus cruise visitors. And I ask the question, what's wrong with us? You look around, you see all the different countries being able to get inward investment. New hotel developments are coming on stream because you also borrow from their base of guests. If you get, for instance, a branded Marriott here, you have access to Marriott's reward program all over the world, now available to you. So we really have to start to buckle down and get things done in a much more serious way. I remember when I sounded the alarm back in 2018 that St. Thomas was eating our lunch. Remember when I said that? And all of them started to take me to task. I saw what's happening. Oh, he wants to divide us, and so on and so on. Now, St. Thomas gone with breakfast, they gone with lunch, they gone with dinner, and they after dinner drink. And we are now trying now on our back feet. Every minute, you know, Hilton opened in New Hampton just the other day in St. Thomas. And we're just right across there. So we're clearly not doing something right. And we have to start to take a look at what we're doing. So we have to look at the tourism sector. You have to look at agriculture too. We have to reduce our import bill, because if we have people eating more organic foods, it manifests itself later on. We see that we won't have people with that many non-communicable diseases and different things happening and so on. So we have to just sit down. And the thing about the BVI, the part about it that I love the most, that actually gives me a high. I can't find a better word for it, because I like to work and I like to make things work. We have a country with 30,000 people, 35, with two main economic pillars.
Right.
Most countries have one. We have a small land mass, right? We have the ability to increase our fishing industry, our agriculture industry. There's a lot of low-hanging fruits in our tourism industry space. There are other, even though, yes, we're having some challenges with financial services, there are a number of add-on services and different things that we can do. Make sure we stay ahead of the curve so we can see, because the industry really drives financial services. So at least we know where things are going, and we can set up the legislation to be able to accommodate those new services that are coming on stream. Right. We could have, with all of those trappings that we have, we could have a real beacon on this side of the world, you know, if we are very diligent about it. Right. But we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And so we're losing out big time, and there's a decreasing quality of life for our people. I met so many people during the festival that said to me, Myron, this is the worst I've seen Tortola. And they're not lying. And they're just here for a couple of days. When you hear about the people who can't get water to bathe, the roads are a mess. Our social services collapsing. You know, seniors got to take 3-4 months after their right to social development to get assistance, and nobody's going back into social development and see what is causing the delay in terms of assistance and services. Small businesses are crying out. You heard us the other day, Honorable Turnbull revealed it. $100,000 for 3 or 4 businesses in his district, but $127,000 they put for over 3,000 businesses in the BVI, and the businesses are struggling. So, you know, we just have to sit down and be diligent. There are a lot of things that we need to do, but if we sit down, we make the requisite plans, and we execute the things rather than spending, and we're spending.
Oh, we're buying.
We had the
I call it buying.
We had the SAP recently. And we were actually in the SAP nickel and diming, because that $20 million loan, that overage $20 million that he did in the salary. And again, I'm not against that, but if you're going to do that, just make sure you come up with an economic plan for how you're going to pay for it, because somebody has to pay for that.
Right.
If you're going to increase, and I mean, it was an error he made, a major error that I called out, and everybody said, oh, I shouldn't call for resignation, and he turned around and do something with the $5 million, and here we are with this. But if you're going to do that, you need to figure out, how am I going to pay for that? And then on top of that, you have a $100 million loan that you just put on. How am I going to service that? At some point, you're going to run into problems if you're not growing your revenue base. And you can't grow your revenue base without proper planning. And that is where we're failing miserably in. So those are some of the things that I would tackle. And I would love doing it. I would love doing it with my team.
Yeah. Well, my last question, I'm not going to ask it, because you just kind of spoke to it. Because if, from this conversation, if people can't see your readiness to lead, then I don't know what to say. But I'm going to save this last question for when you launch your party. You come and launch it right here on the Cut Deep couch.
What about I'm on a party?
I didn't say you had one. I said when you're ready to launch
your party.
Your party.
If we decide to do that, if we have an alliance, it's an alliance of persons. It's not. I like to put me into much of thing.
He's playing on words. But we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna send the member of the House of Assembly home.
You're so kind.
Welcome back to this special edition of Cut Deep. I was happy to have the Honorable Myron Walwyn here on set with me. Like I've said before, I've been running down this interview for how long? For too long. And now he's saying he's not going to be a stranger to the Cut Deep couch. We're still on a bit of a break with Cut Deep, but I think we're going to slowly get back in there. We were happy to have him here tonight. Let me just go through my papers really quickly because, again, I want to thank, those businesses that continue to be here. And if you're looking, we have a Luke Belair that we're going to toast. I want to have the member toast with me on this special occasion of him being here, but also being able to finally open my space.
Yes, I'm happy for you.
I feel very happy.
And you look quite lovely tonight. I didn't tell you that.
Thank you.
You look very nice.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Match the couch.
You're so silly. So I just want to thank, everyone again that has kept me in their prayers, that have supported this platform financially, that has, been there with their kind words, and also, all those small businesses. We've spoken about those small businesses, and, I'm grateful to a lot of them that continue to support this platform with me. and might work with them in terms of getting, their businesses out there in a meaningful way. And to companies like Frozen Imports, Caribbean Sellers, Leading Lady of Destiny, Loose Mongoose, the Bivet Electricity Corporation, the RDA Rotom Wholesale, Vigivilla Rentals, White Oleander Destinations, RKG Solutions Consulting Group, among many others. And I'm timid on usually saying who my supports are, because you know what happens after that. Yeah. But we're not going to worry about that. We're going to thank. You know what you're doing, Cindy? We're going to see tonight Caribbean Sellers for this beautiful bottle of sparkly. Luke Belair. You don't necessarily have to, Cindy, take it off. I don't take it off because I don't want it to pop off. I like to control everything. Oh, look at you. Yeah. Look at you. That's him, girl. Not just your mouth. You're so funny. Listen to me. You are so... All righty. We're going to have just a tiny sip. Yes. We don't want anybody to say that we were here trying to, get tipsy or anything like that. We're very bougie on this set. Cheers to you as the opposition leader and all that you're trying to do for this territory. And I want to say cheers to this new... Yes. And I wish you the absolute best. Thank you. I want you to go out there, Cindy, and continue to do what you're doing. Be fearless. Hold whoever it is to account, whether they're your friend, whether they're your foe. You've been doing a good job at it. Sometimes I don't agree with you. Right. But I appreciate it. And can you tell people how we don't agree sometimes? A lot of times? Most of the time. But I know your heart is in the right place. There we go. That's the key. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in with us tonight. And I wish you all the best for the rest of the week and a brilliant weekend. I think there's some weather coming through. So just pay attention to that. A bit, but yeah. Okay. So just pay attention to that. And we are in the hurricane season. So have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys soon. Great. Good job, Cindy. Proud of you. Good job. Good job. It's a pleasure being here.